Hi, this is Vincent Hammer from Exocad. I'm going to do one last final video on the parameters. This was a question somebody had about how to add a new parameter to a material in the database. And there is one little partial specific step in that process. Now this is really for very advanced users, large labs, resellers. But let me just quickly show you the process. Okay, so let's see. For starters, the file that we're going to use a tool that will change a database file. And so what I always do is I make a copy. This is work params DB. I always make a copy of it, just in case I get into trouble. I can easily restore it. And so the parameters we're going to be looking at is ones that I recently showed you a few videos ago of adding this little edge to close the gap at the edge of the major connector. So those are these two values. We're going to be including those into the existing material files. So to do that, we're going to go over to the database bin folder, and there will be a tool in here, work param config. We're going to be adding to the partial framework. And so these are the values that you see in the database in the partial framework, and these are the materials that are part of the partial framework. So let's edit partial framework, and then let's add a material. So we're going to actually just use the names that we have here. And we'll take 0 to 1. It's millimeter, step size. One thing is here is it uses the European convention, so comma 1 instead of 0.1. And we'll add another one for this one. 0 to 1. Millimeter, step size. We'll also do that. Comma 1. All right, so okay. And then, so we're in partial framework. You also have to make sure that these are not selected for partial framework materials. Okay, so now they show up. Yep, they're showing up down here. You can set the min, the max, and the default value. So let's actually change the default value. Let's make it 0.5 millimeter. And that's what I showed in my video with these settings. All right, now they should also show up in here. Okay, that's it for the database. Let's close and let's just check that really happened. All right, so we'll just create a new partial framework tooth. And let's see what we got. Yeah, so here you see that they have now been added with a default of 0.5 millimeter. However, that's actually still not good enough. This is the part that I need to show you. First, let me show you how you prove it. It's not good enough quickly. So we launch the partial design. Okay, we'll just load in a dummy scan file. Okay, so now I actually don't need to go through the whole design process to see if this parameter worked or not. All I have to do is save it. And what this does, and I'll close this again. If I open an Explorer, that's the trick I showed in the other video too, is you have this param diffs thing, and that will show you any parameter that is different from the default. And if we go through here, we'll see that we don't have the values that we added. Okay, and the reason is because we skipped one step. So let's let me just show you that step. So if we go back to our install folder, partialCad app config, there is this file that provides the glue between the database and the partials. So in here, it basically maps a value for every linked parameter. It links a value of the database to a value of partialCad. Okay, and even if the name is the same, which normally it isn't, but if you're going to be adding it, it probably will be the same. they still need to be linked. So what we could do here is we'll just take a copy. Now, just as a side note, there's a lot of free tools out there that will edit an XML file a lot better than doing it with Notepad. Notepad has the risk if you unbalance something, you won't see a flag. If you use like Notepad++, for instance, then it's much better to edit XML files with. But this is a very simple edit that we're doing, so it's not. I'm just going to do it in Notepad. Okay, so that's what we need to add. That provides the glue that will actually look for a database parameter and map it to the partialCad parameter. If there's no glue, even the same name, nothing happens. Okay, let's close that. Let's go back to our database. We're going to launch again. Now, if you load the pre-existing scene file, you can expect to get the same parameters that were created by that scene file. So we're going to start with a scan again, just so we actually really load up the dental project file and not just load up a pre-existing scene file. Okay, so now let's see what happens. Now we're going to do a save as again. And we're not going to bother to apply or build anything. And actually didn't need to do a save as. Could have done a regular save. Okay, drop out of here. Open an Explorer. Okay, so param.diffs.txt. And here they are, edge fall off and edge major connector. Okay, so that was the step that was required. And just as a quick review, if you don't want to mess with the database, you can also use the custom user prefs ini file. So if there's two ways to do that. So let me go over to user profile. There we go. partialCad. So the custom user prefs ini file that is created as soon as you hit custom prefs. And so I could have added those values here, and especially with this kind of value, that's sort of a new thing, that would have worked. In some cases it doesn't work. Then you can create this custom global prefs and add it in there. That would be an alternate way to add these values. But if you're, if you do a lot of testing or if you're a reseller, take these steps that I just showed you in the database. Thank you very much.